Okay guys, alright, here we go again. I've just been itching to find another deck that we could use counter-offensive in. I'm completely addicted to this card. I think it's one of the funnest cards in the game right now since the last patch that gave it that buff to +2/+2. It's just been amazing getting these huge power units on the board, and so I looked for another way to leverage this card, and I came across the Alpine archetype with it, and it's proving to be super useful. The archetype with Alpine will be explained in a second. If you're completely new and you don't know what Alpine is yet, hang on, I'm going to explain it for you. And if you do know what Alpine already is, go ahead and jump ahead to the deck guide. But I'm going to take a second and explain it. So this particular case with Alpine and counteroffensive, you end up with a lot more stronger units on the board. So when you're running Winter Warfare, all your units typically survive. You get a lot of damage units on the board because most of the units are pretty cheap, and you end up with the potential to get some massive attack power on the board relatively early. And so let's go through the mechanics of what Alpine does, and then we will jump into the deck guide and watch a few games. Alright, so here we are in game now. If you go to your card collection and you search Alpine. So Alpine is defined as, a couple of nations have Alpine. Before Breakthrough, only Germany and Italy were your Alpine units, but now Japan and Soviet both have Alpine. So that's why we're looking at this Soviet deck right now that we're going to look at in a minute that supports using Alpine. So when you click on a card or hover over it, it'll read to you the description here. When an Alpine unit is deployed or added, it gets +1/+1 for each other Alpine unit you control. So whether you play it from your hand or it gets added to the board from some other mechanism, like I showed you in a previous video with the 34th Infantry with Japan causing the 35th Mountain Rifles to get added to the board, the Alpine still kicks in. And so basically what this means is if you start off with this 1-drop Alpine, that's a 1/2, and then on turn 2 you play the second Alpine regiment. It's a 2/2 is the base values, but because there's already an Alpine unit, this will actually deploy as a 3/3. And if you play another one of these, it's going to deploy as a 4/4. Then another one will be a 5/5. So whatever your number of Alpine units that are on board are, that's what you have to add to the base stats of whatever next Alpine unit you deploy. And this applies to the Obichi DA-7513 artillery as well, which becomes a pretty potent part of the Alpine meta, if you will. And I say Alpine meta, saying the best way to play Alpine. It doesn't mean that Alpine itself is meta within the whole game, but this is probably the strongest way to play Alpine if you're going to play the Alpine archetype. And so here, you can see here, deployment, your Alpine units get Fury, but plus the Obichi will also buff itself because it is also an Alpine. So that's effectively all there is to Alpine. You'll see it in action during the games that we're going to watch in a minute. Let's go ahead and jump into the deck guide. Alright, so here's the deck, okay? So basically, just like the last deck, I'm looking at wanting to exploit Winter Warfare counter-offensive combination for the fun of this deck, the meme of the deck, if you will. That's really what I was going for. I mean, the deck does not win 80% of its games by any stretch of the imagination, but it is just a lot of fun to play, and it's a nice change of pace to try something new. If you're relatively new, your collection may not have a lot of Italy cards. It takes a while to get these alliance cards from Italy and France, and so you may have to craft them if you have the resources, but if not, you just might have to be patient until you could accumulate these cards to try out this deck. So here we go. We got the 3 counter-offensives, and I only took 2 Winter Warfare because with this deck we are going to be spamming the board, and the odds are we're going to have damaged units from other interactions of the game anyways, as it is. Okay, so we're running Zhukov, and the reason we're running Zhukov is because the only Soviet infantry we have in this game, in this deck, is the 35th Mountain Rifle. So Zhukov is guaranteed to pull you a 35th Mountain Rifle, which means if you have Zhukov in your mulligan, keep it. Because on turn 2, you could use Zhukov to play this 5/5 Mountain Rifles right away on turn 1, or turn 2, sorry. Now, if you have other Alpine units in your hand, you can wait and be patient. Alright, so if you get some of the 1-drops, the Alpini regiment here, you want to get this on the board. Your card draw, one of your card draw engines is the 2nd Alpini regiment, and these guys, when you deploy one of these and you control another Alpine, you draw a card from your deck. So this is a super good card that you want to have. So you want to protect your base Alpine unit on the board as much as you can, so that when you draw the 2nd Alpini regiment, you get your card draws to trigger, okay? So that's important. So if you have these cards to start off the game, you're going to play them out on curve, turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, just keep pounding them out. And if you have Zhukov, then at some point when you have a couple of Alpine units on the board already, go ahead and play the 35th Mountain Rifles down off of Zhukov. It'll cost 1 credit to deploy it, so for 2 credits you get to put it on the board. 1 for Zhukov, 1 to play the card. That's half price. And if you already have 2 Alpine units on the board, for example, this guy goes down as a 7/7. Like on turn 3, you could put this down as a 7/7. It's insane. Way stronger than the Japanese-Soviet combo I showed you a few videos ago. And if you get some of these in hand on top of that, and on turn 4, turn 5, you can play all these out on curve. Your board is so strong, and we're going to see that in one of the games I have here, I believe. So Eastern Front bound. This got buffed 2 or 3 patches ago. It now gives your Alpine units +1/+1 and draws an Alpine unit from your deck. So this helps keeping your Alpine engine going. If you have a few Alpines on the board, or even just 1, or you just need a card draw, this is a card you play. It'll buff everything on the board that's an Alpine +1/+1 and give you an Alpine out of your deck that you can play, right? So that helps you draw your Alpine units to get that Alpine engine going. The thing about Alpine is it's a slow deck. It's kind of like tokens in that way, right? You're working with infantry. This is a slower moving deck, so you want to make sure that this Alpine engine can keep going, and so that every turn from the beginning of the game, you want to get Alpines out. And obviously the worst thing with these Alpine decks is, you know, there's only 12 of them. So out of 40 cards, you got 12 Alpines. 39 cards in the deck, you got 12 Alpines. And sometimes some games, you're not going to get any Alpine at all for the first few turns, because that's just the way the RNG goes in this size of a deck, right? So in that case, what's going to happen is you're looking back to your Soviet aggro roots here, and we're playing the T-80s, the Katyushas, the BT-7s. And these guys are all great counter-offensive targets as well. Remember the Soviet aggro deck I showed you in the last video? And if you haven't watched that video, go check it out to see what I mean. These guys here all play great with the Winter Warfare counter-offensive combination as well. So there's no love lost there if you don't have your Alpine. As long as you're able to flood the board with these guys and get them going with those 0 operation costs, they can be super potent. So there's not a lot of substitutions for this deck, unfortunately, because it is geared around Alpine. You need to have the Alpine cards. If you don't have them, you're just going to have to be patient and wait to get them. Obviously, from the people, you can substitute the hammers and any of these other regular Soviet units. If you don't have them, you can fill it in with whatever you see fit. Look for things that are cheap and fast. So, in a nutshell, that's how this deck plays. I find it super fun. It's not uncommon to get units in the front line with a 15-15 stats. We should see some of that in the games I'm about to show you. Any questions about the deck? Drop it in your comments below. Alright, so that's the deck guide, guys. Let's check out the games. Alright, so here we go. Game 1 versus WWII. Alright, so we got the 1-drop Alpine in our hand. Very good. We're going against Soviet, so we're going to keep 1 from the people in case he's token. So we mully into having another Alpine and a T-70. So we play out the 1-2 on curve. First turn, we play out the Alpine. The second turn, we actually want to play the 2-drop, the T-80 rather. We want to play the T-80 because that has a 0 operation cost. And we get another Alpine off the top deck. So now what that allows us to do is take the 0 operation cost up to the front and attack, while we still get to play out our other Alpine units in the support line. So we'll be able to play out 2 more Alpine units. Oh, he doesn't do anything yet, so even better. Ooh, a BT-7 now, so other options, but so you can see 0 op cost. Let's play the Alpine down. Look at the stats just grow on these Alpine units as you keep playing them. It's just pretty cool to see. And so you can see now already how fast we filled the board up, and if we were able to get a Winter Warfare, we would be having a pretty strong unit in that front line right now. Okay, so he heals, long range recon. We're not worried about healing because we're going to pack so much punch later. Alright, so dropping the 35th Mountain Rifles is not a bad play here. Eats up 4 credits, but we still have the 0 op cost, or we go wide with another 0 op cost. And that's what we do here. We end up just going a little bit wider, which is fine. Another good play would have been 35th Mountain Rifles, because he would have become +3. He would have been a 8-8 right out of the gate, so that would have been fierce. But instead I opted to go with the cheaper units and get the 0 op costs out there. So he goes and hits us with Confusion. Confusion is a major risk to this deck, right? You have to be very aware. If you only have 1 unit in the front line, it's very, very risky against Soviet, because the Confusion, he'll be able to use that Confusion to attack your HQ if that's the only unit in the front line. So we go back out with an Alpine there. It's a 4-4 now. So we'll go Eastern Front bound here, or Katyusha. Let's go Katyusha. We got 3 Alpine on the board, so that's pretty good value for the eastern-bound front or whatever, eastern front bound. So he goes Scorched Earth. Oh, Scorched Earth is such a pain in the butt. So +2 to all our operation costs. Alright, so Zukov. Alright, so now we get a mountain rifles. We'll put that down. Put down the other mountain rifles. Now we got an 8-8 and a 9-9 because of the Alpine effect. That is just crazy. Crazy stats. Against Soviet, there's not a lot to deal with that. I mean, they've got critical hit combined with Bloody Sickle and different things, but they don't have like the direct removal. He goes another Scorched Earth. Man, Scorched Earth is annoying. So this is where it'd be nice to have a bolster, I guess, eh? Okay, so our movement is very expensive. We'll go ahead and Eastern Front bound and we'll buff. So now we got a 10-10. Interestingly, if we could find a Winter Warfare, we almost got an OTK with that 10-10. He would buff 1, 2, 3, 4. We got 7 units on board, so he would buff 14. He'd be a 24. Pretty close. So you could just see the power. Like, he just doesn't have anything to deal with the amount of health points that we have on the board to kill them all. And so even though he's doing all these stalling tactics, he doesn't really have anything right now. So we just pulled a Winter Warfare. So that's pretty solid. So we're not going to use it yet. We put another unit down. Because we know he can't really deal with all these units right now. So now we have OTK set up for sure. Wait and see what he does. If he drops a guard or something, that'll slow us down a bit, I guess. Like, look at that. 9-9, a 10-10, 7-7. Alright, so he takes the 7-7, attacks the 9 with it. He's got a Bloody Sickle. I guess he has 2 Bloody Sickles. So that's why he did that. So he kills that off. Alright, so we lost 2 units. So Confusion, like I said, is a... oh, does he have critical hit as well? Oh, look at that. He just wipes us out there. So waiting one more turn ended up costing us a lot of tempo there. But we still look at our board still. The 4-5, the 5-5, and we got another Western bound front card in our hand. Is it Western or Eastern? Eastern front bound card in our hand. So we can buff all of our guys again and get another Alpine unit. And then that'll draw us another card if we want. So we can buff that 0 op cost guy. So we need 3 credits to play the combo. So we can put down 1 more Alpine. We'll put down the 1 more Alpine. Now we Winter Warfare. Get all that damage, and then we're going to go and counter-offensive our tank. We get an 18-17 tank. And boom. Just like that, down to 4 health. So that's not much different than what we've seen before. I think the biggest difference with this deck compared to the last Soviet aggro deck is the last Soviet aggro was always a lot of cheap units, whereas this deck is just a lot of big, powerful, slow-moving infantry that are on the board. Alright, so we got lethal here maybe, if the math works out. I don't think it will. I guess if, no, Katusha costs 7. I mean, so we got From the People in our hand. So we kill 1 with From the People, and then we kill that, and then lethal. So there we go. Perfect. Easy kill. Alright, that's game 1 versus Wycrad. So I don't know what he was playing. It was very, very slow as well, trying to stall us out, but we just had way too much muscle on the board. Alright, so now we got all these 3 drops. Winter Warfare, we should get rid of it. And we really want to get those 1-drop Alpines. So we don't get any, but we do have Zukov. And like I said in the intro, Zukov is super strong on turn 2 with this deck. So basically, on turn 2, we can go Zukov or we can go with the BT. The BT has the 0 op cost, right? So that actually lets us attack on the next turn as well. So, let's see what we do this time. It's more about your mood at the moment, right? I mean, sometimes I go with the tank, and other times I go with the Zukov. I think Zukov was the right play here because we don't have any other Alpine in our hand anyway. If we had a few more Alpine, then you would play out maybe the 2-0 tank, and then all the Alpine at once on your next turn. Just because if you play out just 1 Alpine, then 1 Alpine, you're putting yourself at risk of removal. And when your Alpine units get killed, then the next Alpine doesn't get the buff, right? The Alpine has to be on the board to get the buff. So you want to make sure that when you play them out, they have a chance of sticking and getting the buff. Putting out a 5-5 on turn 2 is a good chance he's going to stick for a few turns. Would be nice to find some more Alpine right now. So we pull in a Katusha. I guess we just push up and then we Just pressure, hit face as much as we can. We're not going to trade into him or attack his units unless we really have to. You want to make sure when you're attacking and trading that you're getting value out of it. So right now it cost him 1 of his 4 credits to attack us, and he doesn't even kill us. So he may not attack us either, but for now, if we attacking that guard with our Katusha doesn't give us a whole lot of value. So we have the Winter Warfare in our hand. What we really want to find now is our counter-offensive. Because even with only this many units on board, 4 units on board, counter-offensive is a +8/+8. I mean, that's pretty sick. So here we get our next Alpine unit down that happens to be another mountain rifle. So it's a 6/6 now. So once again, we're seeing the Alpine compounding effect happen here. It's pretty intense. Becomes a lot to deal with, and especially against control decks like the British, like with carpet bombing and stuff. Like your units are too strong and they can't deal with them, right? So he did a decent job there. He got it down low enough that Root was able to kill out a lot of them. So we're left with just the 4/4, which will get his health back in a minute after the Root wears off. Alright, so we got a 3/4. And I don't know what this is going to be. I guess it's going to be back to a... We got +1/+1. The Root's gone. So yeah, 7/7 in the front still. So the problem here is we're playing against a discard deck, which doesn't generally play a lot of units. So we're going to have trouble getting value with by the sword to get that card draw going. That's going to be a challenge here. So we got to really hope that we're top decking like champs here. Alright, so we can go play the Alpine down. He becomes a 4/4. Then we can play the 1-drops out. Push 1 up. And we got enough credits to play out all of these guys. So now even if he does carpet bomb on turn 7, he only kills 1 unit with a carpet bomb. And he can't do anything else. So it does reduce, and it even gives us value on the counteroffensive because he would leave 5 units damaged, which would give us a +10/+10. So a carpet bomb would be actually really good for us here. He doesn't have it, so he bounces us. Bounces the mountain rifles back to our hand. It's fine. That actually works in our favor because we're going to play it again. And we have 4 Alpine units on the board, so he's actually going to get a bigger buff now. Move everything up. And boom. 9/9. Yeah, so now he's at 9/9 instead of what is 7/7, so he's actually 2 points stronger. Of course, the risk now is that he can bounce this again if he has another F2 in his hand. But here's what it is. I mean, you can't play around. Our deck plays a certain way, and so you can't play around everything, right? It's like if he has bounce, he has bounce. We just got to keep trying to push forward, and as soon as the opportunity arises, do our big buffs and just smash them as hard as we can. So we got that second Alpini regiment in our hand, so that'll give us another card draw. So if we don't top deck a counter offensive, that'll give us another chance to draw. So he's got these 2 Gren guards down. That's a pain in the butt. Alright. He's able to get a 2-for-1 on his F2. Alright, we got 2 second Alpini, so I think we just go on a big... Or buy the sword, good value here. 3 cards. Definitely good value. And we get counter offensive. 3 damage to a unit. So that'll kill the tank, so that's good. And that's going to leave a lot of damaged units on the board. We're going to go and buff the 0-op. When you're playing against Germany, make sure you're not buffing your 1-drops very much because we all know about Flampanzer. The Flampanzer will nuke your 1-drop, so you don't want to waste your buffs on a 1-drop that gets beat easily by a Flampanzer. So in this case, we buff the 2-drop and we're safe from a Flampanzer. Not safe from a sudden strike and stuff, I get it, but you protect against what you can. Fog of War, alright, so now we know what we're drawing for our next 2 turns. And a wolf pack. Alright, so at least we have this second Alpini that lets us draw one of these tanks back up. So we can deal 3 damage and hit them with... And we almost got lethal here. I think we do have lethal. Yeah, 9 plus 7. We got exactly lethal. Love math. Works out exactly. I kind of probably got a bit lucky there because I didn't calculate that I had lethal before playing some cards down. So I was lucky I didn't run out of credits there. So I'd call that a misplay. Always, first thing you need to ask yourself at the beginning of every turn, can I win the game right now? And that will remind you to check for lethal on every turn. That way you will miss lethal a lot less. I mean, we even saw in the Officer Club Championship earlier this weekend, lethal gets missed by the best of them. Alright, so, alright, took a bit to get there, but now we have our 1-drop. So from here, we can go into the BT7, which gives us the 0-op tank, or we could just start working our Alpine units. It's really a judgment call. With him putting down that Chaika, yeah, I think we need to go ahead and start building up our Alpine, because that Chaika is a bit dangerous. There's a good chance he's going to push that Chaika to the front line, so having the 3-3 will let us deal with that. Okay, so he doesn't push it up. A lot of the times guys will push it up so that they can Euro factory in the front line. And then they get a unit in the front line plus the 3-2 plane that comes out from the Ishak's destruction. Alright, so we're going wide here. We're building up some Alpine. We got the 0-op tanks down. So he's got his Pioneer regiment there, or not the Pioneer, whatever that one's called that does all the healing, the 0-4. So every time we kill one of his units, he's going to heal 2. This is with Soviets, right? They get a lot of healing. And a lot of healing is not really a problem for our deck, because we know that when we get the swing of tempo into our favor, we're going to have a massive unit to destroy him with. Alright, so we got to kill the Ishak to get it out of the way. And he gets the 3-2 fighter in its place, and it's behind the guard. So we got enough credits here. Yeah, we can go with the Winter Warfare, and we can buff real early here. This is a dangerous play. Very dangerous. Alright, so there, we kill the guard. Now this is funny. He could attack us with his infantry and heal 17. If he has confusion, he flips that around and he has lethal. 5 credits, yeah, he could have lethal if he had confusion in his hand, because he would hit a HQ for 17 and finish us with the plane. So I think we're very lucky here that he doesn't have confusion in his hand. But he can heal 17 up to 41 health just by attacking the tank with his 2-2. And I think that's kind of a no-brainer. He would heal 17 plus 2. He would heal 19 if he would have done that. So that's a misplay on his part, I think. He could have healed 19. Or maybe he's planning that he's still going to do it next turn. I don't know. Hopefully Katusha procs. And it does. So forget that. He's not healing 17. And we're going to make light work of the train here. Dealing 17 damage to it. He heals 2 again. But we're still at 11 health. And this tank is just fierce. He has nothing to do with that. Just hope he doesn't top deck anything. Because if he could have killed it, he would have killed it by now. So he's fishing for something. He probably is critical hit. So he just used heroes. So now if he got the Naval Brigade, he could destroy it by deploying that guard with ambush, the 4-4 with ambush. He won't have enough credits right now, but he could do that next turn potentially. So hopefully he has no other guards, because I really want to get one smack in the face. And actually we have lethal, because we have the Obichi in our hand, and that artillery is going to give... Oh, but that's not an Alpine, so it won't have Fury. So we don't have lethal. But we can do some damage. We'll put some Alpine effects. Our artillery becomes a 3-4, which is nice. And we go and hammer as many as we can into his face with the Fury that the Obichi gave the Alpine units, plus the 17 from the BT7. I might be getting the names mixed up on these tanks, but you know what I mean. The BT80, the BT7, whatever it is. The 17 attack tank. Alright. So we have mountain rifles in our hand. So now he has confusion. So we're very lucky that we had another unit in the front line. Because if we didn't have another unit in the front line, and that was by itself like it was earlier, he would have just been able to turn it around and kill us. But because we had another unit in our front line, it brought it to his support line, and he had to attack the front line, or other front line units, and he didn't have access to our HQ. And whatever reason, I guess he sees that. He doesn't have a Euro factory in his hand or anything, and we're just going to get the unit back. And he surrenders. And that's it. That's the game. All right, that's the deck, guys. Have a great time with it. It's just a lot of fun, I find, to play with. Alpine is not something you get to play very often. And this deck lets you exploit that new buff on counteroffensive and play some Alpine units. Good luck. Have fun.